Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for a wonderful introduction. And I'm really excited to be here today on behalf of the Digital Democracies Institute at Simon Fraser University. Continuing from what Rosemary has discussed regarding moral injury, the portion that I want to focus on today is around trust. So how communities form trust about biomanufactured products such as COVID-19 vaccine. So my agenda today, is it actually showing over here? Okay, hold on, let's see. Aha, okay, fantastic. All right, so my agenda today is first to share how we got into this study, this particular study, inception of the research, introducing the kinds of works that the DDI, the Digital Democracy Institute at Simon Fraser University, has been doing to foster more democratic exchanges, both on and offline, and how our research on trust and authenticity will help tackling mis and disinformation, fake news, online hate, and aggression in algorithmically curated spaces. So to start off, I have no conflict of interest to declare in relation to this presentation first. To start off, I also want to acknowledge that the DDI at Simon Fraser University is on the unceded traditional stolen territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Kaikat, Kwantlen, Semiahmoo, Tsawwassen peoples, and I'm also very grateful to live, work, and study in their lands. So to give you a little bit of a picture of the inception of the study, the DDI has done a series of projects, as you can see, beyond verification, from hate to agonism, data fluencies, and imaginative methods. And to talk about how we got into this particular research around trust and authenticity, I have to go through the BV project and H2A projects. So the Beyond Verification project came about as we wanted to leverage emerging technologies to combat fake news. We wanted to focus on structures and actions that foster junk content production and circulation that are prevalent in online spaces nowadays. And especially because we're flooded with information that it's so hard to tell whether this is true or not. So we wanted to pin down in this project then what really constitutes authenticity. What makes a news item appear more authentic, thus more trustworthy, and what are the ways in which authenticity can be identified, evaluated, and assessed. So with this in mind, then we got into this question of then how can we foster more democratic exchange online? So this is Hate to Agonism project, and especially since the COVID-19 pandemic in the last few years, we have seen a significant surge in abusive language and abusive online behaviors. In response, governments around the world have enacted strong laws, legislations that against abusive language that leads to hatred, sometimes criminal offenses against particular groups of communities. Now, this now led to legal obligations to moderate, detect, evaluate, and potentially even remove or delete online materials containing hateful or illegal content in a timely manner. And social media companies have also adopted very stringent regulations in their own terms of use. But the problem is that we do not yet have effective human or technical processes that can really address this need. Using human content moderators is not only costly, but also inadequate on so many levels. First of all, it is very costly. The nature of the work is also psychologically very challenging, and significant efforts lag behind the deluge of data posted every second. So at the same time as solutions, we are also seeing more and more increasing adoption and implementation of artificial intelligence to address such abusive language use in these online spaces. But this also raised many concerns regarding automated processes that affect fundamental human rights, such as freedom of expression, privacy, and lack of corporate transparency. So it is no surprise that content moderation has been dubbed by industry and media as a billion-dollar problem. So then against this background, the H2A, the Hate to Agonism project, then addresses the overarching question around the responsible tech use, responsible AI. So then how can artificial intelligence be better deployed to foster democracy by integrating freedom of expression, commitments to human rights, and multicultural participation in the protection against abuse? And from here, our research into understanding and exploring the role of conflict and authenticity came about. We wanted to understand how the concepts of conflict and authenticity can be useful and helpful in fostering more democratic dialogues in online spaces where public trust is often limited. So how can conflict help foster democratic dialogues and reduce behaviors of aggression? More specifically, then why people perceive certain pieces of news as more authentic? What are the processes which lead people to authenticate something they read online, thus trustable? And ultimately, why trust science at all? So these are the core questions that drove the inception of our research. And as a part of Canada's Immunoengineering and Biomanufacturing Hub, and funded by the Government of Canada, the Bridge Research Consortium aims to rebuild a strong and resilient domestic biomanufacturing and life sciences sector ahead of a future pandemic event. And one of the co-directors of this consortium, Dr. Yves Dubé, is also present at our conference this time, a professor at the University of Laval. And another co-director is Kelly Lee, Dr. Kelly Lee from Simon Fraser University from the Department of Health Sciences. And the Bridge Consortium is really truly a collaboration of Canadian leading humanities and social sciences scholars, and we work with the CIEBH and other hubs across Canada to support the acceptance and accessibility of immune-based innovations. And this will be achieved through multidisciplinary research, training, and public engagement activities integrated across the therapeutic pipeline and immunization system. The consortium aims to better understand and support strategies to tackle issues of misdisinformation, public trust, and equity. And our focus is on co-creating collective actions that will bridge a broad range of communities and stakeholders. So this is the DDI Bridge team. Currently there are 8 members in this project, 5 core members presented here with the director, Dr. Wendy Hee-Kyung Chun, Canada's 150 Research Chair in New Media and also British Academy Fellow. And we're closely collaborating with the following 3 members within the SFU as well. Now, in order to understand how communities then form trust around biomanufactured products such as COVID-19 vaccine, we are taking a 2-pronged approach. One is a more historical approach, looking at AstraZeneca case study, and second is a research persona, exploration of microspaces of trust by doing a research persona. So first, let me explain to you how our historical approach may help tackling this issue of vaccine skepticism and hesitancy. So we're going back to the 2021 AstraZeneca suspension that happened in Canada for people aged 55 and older. Now, there were concerns about side effects, and the suspension fueled proliferation of conspiracy theories. there was a big kerfuffle among health communicators as well when delivering this message. 3 weeks after restricting the AstraZeneca vaccine to people aged 55 and older, provinces across Canada have reversed course and expanded access to include anyone aged over 40. And at that time, Canada's National Advisory Committee on Immunization was expected to recommend the reversal on April 2021, based partly on a review of recent US blood clotting events, but NACI canceled its press conference 5 minutes before it was about to start, citing that they have the need to further validate its data analysis. So we're tracing this history and looking at what happened in social media platforms when AstraZeneca was suspended and AstraZeneca vaccine was suspended, and how people reacted to suspension, what kind of narratives developed in these microspaces of trust, and how these narratives gained traction, who was disseminating this narrative about vaccine and dangers related to vaccination. Here what you see is initial data that we have that our internal DDI tech team has collected from Reddit. And we put into this graph using our own NLP, natural language processing text model. And so it shows the flow of conversations from early 2020 to late 2022, so throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. And what you see here is the peaks here indicate when conflict appeared the most in the conversations in Reddit. So, and the different colors that you see, I wonder if you can see the thin green line over here, yeah. So the thin green line indicates agonistic conflict, which we believe is a healthier form of conflict necessary for democratic information exchange. And then the red is antagonistic, which doesn't quite help. And then the gray is neutral. It's neither agonistic or antagonistic. So our internal model detects these different forms of conflict in these online conversations, and we do a mixed method analysis to qualitatively also analyze what these actually mean then. So at the moment, we're still at the initial stage in developing and sort of fine-tuning our data. So this is something that we can actually come back next year to share our findings. But the second approach is a much longer project that will move on to 2027, where we're employing a research persona method, which means that we are creating a fictitious character online, carefully crafting a biography of a user. So, for instance, let's say a Gen Z female in her 20s living and based in Toronto, went to different schools, had different issues in schools, and ended up working at Toronto Pearson Airport and talking about different passions. And from there, the researcher impersonates this character and navigates in these microspaces of trust. So logging into social media platforms and start following, joining different groups. Instead of interacting with anyone in an active voice, not participating, we simply observe what the algorithms in these online spaces may do to us. So in this process, we are trying to examine how algorithms may optimize the kinds of contents that we see. So what contents pop up in my feed, what groups are suggested, instead of going into online spaces and surveil and kind of collect what kind of conversations that are taking place in these spaces. What we're trying to see is, what would I see if I were a member of certain communities, and what kinds of content would I read? What kind of information would I encounter? So we will meticulously record and document all the responses and processes. And at the end of this process, the goal here is to provide insights to health communicators, how certain communities come to develop a sense of trust in these processes, and how they may use this system of trust to authenticate pieces of news shared within a community. So in a nutshell, our focus is not so much about surveilling or exposing these communities, but rather focusing on the mechanism of algorithms that influence the kinds of content and information that we see, and also strengthening the mechanism of trust formation. So this project will go through about 3 different phases: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then finally it is expected to complete it in 2027. And as you can see our deliverables here, we want to directly hear from healthcare workers and their challenges and their needs, so that we can really help the community of healthcare workers who are at the forefront in cases of health emergencies. So I would love to have further discussions on this topic, and thank you very much.